Hi, everyone. Tiffany Ashton with ClinEssentials. Let me know if you can hear me okay by dropping a yes in the comments. So, just wanting to see if everyone can hear me okay before we get started. And I'm not seeing anything yet. So, let's give it a moment for people to join. All right. Can you guys hear me? Can you see me okay? Let's see. Good morning, Holly. All right, I was just making sure we have hello. Good to see some familiar faces. So we'll give it another moment or so and then we'll get started. Hi, Glenda. All right, perfect. There must have been just a tad bit delay. But I wanted just to make sure that you can hear me. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Thanks so much for joining. My name is Tiffany Ashton, and I am the Director of Operations at ClinEssentials. And I am also a clinical research professional who has been in the industry. Uh, in July, it will be 20 years. So I have been around for a while, and I really, really, really enjoy clinical research, working with other clinical research professionals. So I will tell everyone a little bit about my background, and then we can open it up for some questions that any of our attendees may have. And then if we don't get a few questions. I do have a few that I will run through as well. The typical questions that I see and I receive from those looking to get into the industry, etc. All right. So, a little bit about myself. So, 20 years ago, right out of high school, I was hired at a site management organization. And at that organization, that SMO, there were clinical research coordinators, there was a director of clinical research, and we worked with various doctors and so PIs and sub-Is within the community, in our community. And so one of the things that when I started, I was actually an admin assistant and at the SMO, and I was observing what was going on that the coordinators were doing, and I really expressed an interest to become a coordinator and learn more about clinical research because at that time I was unaware, right out of high school, unaware of clinical research in general. And so at that time, I spoke with my director, and she said, yes, we can train you, you can shadow, you can learn more about clinical research, you can supplement with courses, etc. And that's how I got my start. And so I want to, there's a lot of people that are looking to either get started, transition from another role. And so sometimes you just have to start at another position at either a clinical research site or a sponsor company or a biotech company and just get in and express some interest to learn more and also supplement on your own. Hi. And so that is just one thing. I get that question a lot. How can I get in? How did you get started? I started as a clinical research coordinator. So after they trained me, I became a clinical research coordinator. I did that for 4 years while I was pursuing my bachelor's. And then after I got my degree, I then moved to the CRA role. And I did that for about 3.5, 4 years. And then At that time, I was thinking about getting off the road and not traveling anymore. And so I looked into the CTM position at that time. And so I was able to get a project manager position at a local, it was a small pharmaceutical company. So I just wanted to paint that picture of my progression. It didn't go overnight. I started in 2003 as a clinical research coordinator. And then by the time I became a CRA, it was 2007. And by the time I became a project manager, it was 2010. So just wanted to, paint that picture of there is a progression that needs to happen. Now that I am in the industry, very experienced, there are some ways that you can cut down some time to CTM. If CTM is where you want to be initially, you can go to the CTA route. So you can start off at a pharmaceutical company and go the CTA route, and then that's a little bit closer to getting the CTM. But there is a time that you have to put into the industry and get the experience under your belt to make you, successful in each of your roles. So definitely wanted to just help with a lot of, expectations for people that are looking to transition. It's not going to come overnight. It's not going to be by in the next 6 months, I can be a CRA. You have to put in the groundwork and kind of work your way up in clinical research. And so after CTM, I've been in the CTM space for over since 2010, really. But here and there, I would do lead CRA, or I would do like unblinded CRA or unblinded CTM. So I've taken various roles, but consistently, I've been in the CTM realm since 2010, and I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So it just depends. Another thing, if you're new in the industry, you really want to understand what each role is. What does a coordinator do? What does a CRA do? What does a CTM do? And you have to make sure you understand the landscape so then you can do the correct career path based off of what you ultimately want to do and the position that aligns to you. So that was just a quick intro, a quick background about myself. I see our first question, so I am going to take it. It says, let's see, do you think there are any disadvantages from transitioning from CTA to CTA without having CRA experience? I'm thinking you're saying CTA to CRA without having CRA experience. Um, so one of the things, if you are trying to go to the CTA, from CTA to CRA, you need to supplement. You have to be ready for the CRA role. When you're on the road, when you're traveling, when you're getting to the sites, they are looking to you as the person that is auditing their site, giving them guidance, helping retrain them. And so if you don't receive that on your onboarding or as you're like speaking to your company, and sometimes they promote from within. So you may be a CTA and you may say I have interest in being a CRA, and they kind of give you some shadowing opportunities. Hopefully they put you through a training program to really paint the picture. What do you do at a pre-study visit, SIV, IMV, closeout visit? Hopefully they give you some training, but I have heard some companies don't. So what you would need to do if you are looking to make that CTA to CRA transition, don't rely on the company themselves. You need to look at there's the CRA helper, there's the CRA Academy. There's a lot of different companies or programs that you can learn more and get in depth. So you definitely want to make sure that you have that training aspect under your belt. But you having CTA experience, there's a lot of advantages that you have being a CRA with that. Well, let me back up a second. You having CTA experience, there is a lot that you will be bringing to the CRA position because you know how the documents should be maintained, you know the components that go into, the TMF. So you're going to be a stronger CRA because you have CTA experience. But you definitely need to make sure you set yourself up for success to be a CRA transitioning and get, additional training and mentoring there. So, great question. Um, let's see. The next one. I love to hear your take on current hiring freezes and slowdown. Yep, I was ready for that one. So, right now, there's a slowdown in the industry. It is not, maybe you may have seen in the last, since COVID, basically, since the pandemic happened in 2020, it was like an influx of jobs because we had so many COVID trials. We had so many, other new drugs being developed, and just there was a lot of activity. Now that we have the vaccine, things that have kind of slowed down. And so it is very competitive, even for those that have experience. So you have to, we're in a season and we go through these seasons a lot in clinical research. 2014, it was a season like 2020 and 2021, 2022. It was an influx, there was a lot of openings. And then in around 2015, it kind of shut down and it was tight until 2020 again, and then it opened up again. So we go through seasons and waves. That doesn't mean that you cannot get in, but you just have to sharpen your skills. So if you are brand new to clinical research and you want to become a clinical research coordinator, maybe before you could have walked in and said, "Hey, I have, a few transferable skills, would you take a chance on me?" And 2 or 3 years ago, they may have said, "Yes." But now, if you're coming in brand new, um, you need to be taking like a medical terminology course, learning about drug development process, learning about good clinical practices, learning about human subject protection and IRBs. Like you need to be bringing something to that job interview to say, "Hey, I'm looking to transition into this industry, and then this is what I'm coming with. This is what I'm bringing. I'm coming with already exposure. I know what's going on." So that's a very good question. So if you're trying to get in, you have to do your due diligence. You have to do some outside training, get yourself prepped. If you're already in, if you can just kind of continue in your current position, um, that may be best. But if you're really looking to move to another position, you have to sharpen your skills as well. It's competitive even for people like myself that has 20 years in the industry. So it gets like this at times, but you just have to always be open and ready, looking. There's a lot of opportunities. Sometimes you have to network. Sometimes you guys have to look away from the bigger CROs. The bigger CROs, everyone always tends to kind of, "Oh, let me go there." But they tighten up too on their side. Look at the mid-size, look at the smaller CROs and sponsors and see if there's opportunities there. So there's a lot of, you just have to change your strategy when it gets a little bit tighter and make sure that you network. Great question too. Let me see. CTN. Oh, and then, okay, let's see. There was a clarification. You said CTM. Okay. So, Vantasia, do you think, I'm going to go back to that question. Do you think there's any disadvantages from transitioning from CTA to CTM without having CRA experience? No. CRA experience is not required for CTM. It's a nice to know, but it's not required. So as a CTA, you work very closely with the CTM, and so you are seeing the day-to-day functions of a CTM. So it's good to have that CRA perspective, but you don't have to have it. And some CTAs, they can't get on the road. So it's not an option to get that CRA experience, but just interact with CRAs. Make sure you understand, like, "Hey, tell me about how things are on your side," because that is good experience or that's good knowledge to be able to make you a stronger CTM because you know how the CRAs are doing and what they go through when they travel. All right, let's see. Okay, next question. What do you think about approaching the local sites around my area for volunteering, shadowing opportunities just to get my first foot in the clinical research field? Excellent, excellent, excellent. You are on it. And wherever you are in the world or in the United States, excellent, excellent strategy. Excellent strategy. You all you have to do is go on Google and say clinical research sites in Atlanta, clinical research sites in Miami, and see what list comes up. And then go speak. That may be an opportunity. It's better for you to actually show up and go to that site and say, "Hey, I'm coming from." Let's see, I'm coming from marketing, and I'm coming from a marketing background. Do you have any marketing needs for your clinical research site? We're always looking for patients to get in our study. So that could be, you can use your skill, your current skill outside of the clinical research to say, how can I help bring my skill to your site? And, I'll volunteer in exchange for you to let me shadow, let me learn about clinical research, teach me about regulatory, teach me about clinical research coordinator roles, etc. So that's an excellent strategy. I love it. Hello, I'm working as a CRC for the past 18 years now. I want to become a CRA. Is it a very late decision? Oh no, it's not. Whenever. I mean, there's CRAs that are 90, 90 still traveling. There's no age limit on becoming a CRA. But one thing that I will say is because you have 18 years of CRC experience, you should have a nice network of CRAs that you have interacted with over those 18 years. This is where you want to lean into them and say, hey, I'm looking to make the transition. Do you have any openings at your company? Do you have any training programs, any bridge programs from CRC to CRA? Any of those things. If they are not aware, then that's when you want to supplement and try to get, there's various programs. I believe LaShawn has a program. She's on from CRC to CRA, I believe that is. So there's programs. If you can't get through your CRA, you want to also, you have to take the reins into your hands and you have to control your own destiny. So you have to make sure that you're supplementing at all stages. But yeah, go ahead. Definitely. How can we move from the site side to the industry side of clinical research? First thing, very easy to do. You need to identify what role you want to do on the industry side. CTA, data management, what role do you want to do? Then, which is key, and this is not just for your question, but for anyone that is looking, always, 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 you have to look at the job description, the job requirements, and any educational background, any experience requirements that they're asking for. So let's say, for instance, you identify the role that you want to go into. So let's just say you want to be a CTA, and you go find a job description for CTA, and you look at the requirements. What are they wanting? How many years of clinical research experience do they want? Do I need to be proficient with Word and PowerPoint and Excel? What are the requirements? And then look at the job responsibilities and start matching that to what you've done at the site. Helped with, if you're a clinical research coordinator and you helped prepare source documents, that's equivalent to helping to prepare study documents. So you want to look for those. I did this on this side. It's not the exact match, but me creating source documents, that's similar to me creating project documents and different things like that. So definitely, you just have to first identify where you want to go and get real narrow so you can start making sure you're not too broad with your resume and how you set up your resume. What are the profiles in which it is not required to be very familiar with protocol? I'm not sure if I've seen one of those. Um, I mean, you have to know, well, no matter what your role is, whether you're DM, whether you're CTA, whether you are CTM, CRA, CRC, you have to know the protocol. That's your guide. You're going to be looking at it differently. So if you're a DM, for instance, you're going to be really paying attention to the schedule of events because you have to set up the database based off of what they're going to be capturing at each of the visits. So that may be your 100% focus, but then you also need to look at prohibited medications. You need to look at things that would be factored into the database. As a CTA, you need to know these things as well because you're going to have to create the investigator site file, the pharmacy manual. So you need to know what are their procedures so you can go ahead and add those documents in those files. So at every stage, you're going to need to know the protocol. And I just recently released, if you guys aren't following our ClinEssentials YouTube page, so it's just at ClinEssentials. I just recently released a video, tips for reviewing the protocol. So I would definitely advise that you check it out. It may give you some pointers on how to maneuver through all of those pages and sections a little bit better. Good to know. Yes, that slowdown is universal for everyone. If you are, no one may be, I want to stay at their current position forever, but if you're okay, but you want to eventually move up, do some things in the background, take some additional courses, training, networking, all of those things to prepare yourself. But don't get frustrated at this stage right now where we're at if you're not getting those callbacks because they are literally looking for who has the best match with the job description. If there's 15 points on the job description, they're going to, right now in this industry, they're looking who can get as close to those 15 as possible. Then it also goes to interviewing. Who interviews well? Do we want you on our team? Were you energetic? Were you you were energetic, you were professional, you're bringing it, you were answering those questions. If you didn't have the experience, you said, hey, I don't have the experience, but this is how I think I would approach it, etc. These are all of the things that they will be looking for. So if you get a call back right now in this industry, you got to get ready for that interview because interviews are not as abundant as they once were just because of the universal slowdown. Here's another question. Do you have any advice for someone transitioning from nursing into clinical research? The feedback I've been receiving is that I'm overqualified and I don't have enough experience. Nurses are great in clinical research. It really depends on what role you're looking at. When they say you don't have enough experience, they're probably saying that you don't have enough of those foundational clinical research courses. So the courses that I had mentioned, you already have medical terminology because you're in nursing, but human subject protections and IRBs, drug development process, good clinical practices, that with a nursing background and having those core courses, you shouldn't have any issue. However, it does depend on what role that you're trying to go into. If you're trying to go right into CRA right now, they may say you don't have enough experience. Or if you're trying to go right into CTM right now, they may say you don't have enough experience. You may need to start at the CRC level to gain that experience. And there's nothing wrong with having to start at CRC because you're learning so much valuable information. A lot of people say, hey, I wouldn't just go to CRA, CTM, but you're learning so much at each stage. As a study coordinator, you're learning how to interact with the patients. You're learning how to facilitate the protocol, schedule of events. You're doing all of these things. You're learning that. That is not learned in the CRA position. That's not learned in the CTM position. So there's so much value that you have at some of these, more entry level positions that, a lot of people try to just fast track it, but every position brings value. Thanks, Lucy. Okay, I have taken an intensive course, okay, and have a certification in GCP. Yeah. And, if you're coming from a nursing background, you may want to follow something that a previous poster had said. Try to get your feet wet, try to volunteer, shadow, get some, you need to have some. In addition to the course, have some actual, a company that has given you a few months of experience, and you're learning all you can while you're there. So that's something that I would suggest here for you. 5 hours, 10 hours a week. As nursing background, you may be able to go and do phlebotomy for them, or you may be able to do their ECGs, or any of those things that they would need the nursing background for, in exchange for learning about clinical research. So it's a good way that you can get experience. Hi, if we can discuss the career trajectory to be a CTM or project management. Yeah, so it would be from, you can go CRC to CRA to CTM that way. You can go from CRC to CRA to lead CRA to CTM. You can go to CTA, and you probably will have to be a senior CRA. And then you can go to CTM as well. Um, Also, at smaller companies, small biotech, small sponsors, um, you wear multiple hats. So you can go faster really quickly in that way as well, in a smaller company. So always look at smaller companies in your area to see if that may be an option as well. Yep, networking is key, very. Um, hello, how to enter clinical research. So one of the things is, I spoke about it a little bit earlier. You just have to really identify uh, where you want to go, but know that you're going to have to start at a ground level. You're not going to come in no experience going straight to CRA. It's not possible. Going straight to CTM, it's not possible. And I know there's a lot of people that they may have heard that they can just go right into CRA and right into CTM, but as the CRA, the study is almost in your hands. You're the last stop of that data. We can't take someone that's never been in research and give them that much control over that data. They have to have some foundation. So I would say foundation classes, learning about clinical research, learning about phase 1 through 4, learning about the entire drug development process, learning about the FDA, ICH, GCPs, all of these things you have to know in order to monitor. You have to know in order to structure a CTM, as a CTM, to structure your study correctly. So you can't just get in and go right to the top level. You have to start and work your way up, and you're learning all the way through. Good question. We just recently had a post on this. Um, how does the PMP certificate help to become a CTM? How much experience do we need, and what kind of experience, like CRA on-site monitoring experience? So a couple of things. PMP, project management professional certification. That certificate teaches you how to be a project manager in general. A project management, and most people that take PMPs are from all industries. So they could be, coming in from sales. They could be coming in from clinical research. They can be coming in from all different industries taking PMP. And it teaches them how to be a project manager in general, how to manage a team, how to manage timelines, how to manage deliverables. It's very high level. But when you need to know how to manage a study as a clinical trial manager, what is a bid defense? What is a request for proposal? What is how do you plan an investigators meeting? That PMP does not touch those details that you need to know as a CTM. So we have we just recently had a post, and it's on my LinkedIn page, where, a lot of people mistakenly think that they can get a PMP and a PMP certificate and they can just get a CTM role. No, you would not be able to do that if you don't have any prior CTM experience. PMP alone will not just transfer and get you a CTM role, because then when you're in the interview and they asked you, tell me how you would coordinate an interim analysis as a CTM, or tell me how you would go through database lock. What are the steps that you would take to go through database lock as a CTM? That PMP certificate did not tell you anything about that. And that's where a lot of people are mistaken, thinking that the PMP is going to help them get a CTM job. It is good if you're already a CTM and you want to get, experience with managing teams and timelines, and add and build to your experience level. It's good once you're already a CTM, but it's not going to help you get a CTM position without prior experience or coming from another role, because it just doesn't go into the responsibilities of a CTM like it should. And so that's why ClinEssentials has a true CTM training program. So we take you through all of the responsibilities of a CTM, from study startup all the way through closeout. And we talk about career recommendations and general considerations. That's a true CTM program. And if you're really interested in CTM, that's one that I would suggest over PMP. And then the next question, how much experience do you need? What kind of experience? Again, you want to go to your job description for this clinical trial manager. It will tell you, usually you need to have at least 3 to 4 years of clinical trial experience. Sometimes it will say that you need to have previous CRA experience. Sometimes it will say that you need to have they may sometimes be open to taking an experienced clinical research coordinator as well. So our previous poster that had 18 years as a clinical research coordinator, if you wanted to go to CTM, that may be an option as well, because there are some job descriptions that they're looking for experience. And then, sometimes they will take senior CRAs as well and provide a little training, but to supplement. That's another one to take outside of, supplement outside of what your company will provide, like the ClinEssentials CTM course. Great question. That's good. Okay, so I have a BS degree in medical technology, chemistry, master's. Okay, you're hitting the degree fields. 1 year as a remote site monitor, almost. Um, that was term. So now I work as a QC specialist. I'm trying to get back into the associate project manager role, and even opening up my options to data manager CTM position. And it's very difficult. I'm also working on. Um, it's difficult right now for all. So don't think that it's just you. You have a lot of great experience. One of the things that I usually say with this amount of experience and just kind of not being successful, we need to take a look at your resume. We need to make sure that your resume is as maximized as possible. That's hitting all of these elements, that has, the objective at the front, at the top, and hits the key points, what they're looking for. Some employers, they only spend 30 seconds on a resume. If they're not seeing key terms, they're on to the next, because they're seeing so many. So usually in this instance, I always say that we want to look at your resume. We also want to look at, how did any previous interviews go? Did you have an interview and didn't get a call back? And if that's the case, then we need to look at your interview techniques. So there's some things that we have to look into. And for those that want to have the kind of one-on-one with clinical research professionals, ClinEssentials has a career services division where you will meet with a clinical research professional, and we can go through your specific case, and we can say, what's going on, where where can we improve? Is it we're applying to the wrong roles? Are we applying to the big CROs and we need to look at mid-sized sponsors? All of these things we can discuss strategy in those types of meetings. So yeah, I definitely would say Don't be discouraged. You have a lot of good, a lot of good experience. We just need to make sure that your resume is on point, and then we have to make sure that you are applying to companies that will see this and say, "I got to get an interview. I got to learn more," because you have a lot of good experience. You can tell as well. Utilize clinical trials. Yep, exactly. So clinicaltrials.gov. Um, I don't is CenterWatch still, I think CenterWatch is still, yep, CenterWatch is another one. It's the WCG CenterWatch. You can look for like you can go under patient resources and it says like clinical trial listings, and you can go and look for if they're advertising a study for patients, that means there's a clinical research site. So you just reverse it. Okay, I'm going to go look for where patients would find about clinical research research studies, and then I'm going to contact that company for a potential, opportunity to, shadow or get a job, etc. So I managed to wrangle a coordinator interview tomorrow in college. Ooh, all right. Um, duh, 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 duh. So oncology can be complex. There's a lot of it can be so oncology can be complex. So like there's a lot of procedures that are usually done at your visits. So your visit ones, some can be 4 hours long because it's just so many different things. So you want to talk about your ability to work under complex study designs, any strategies for organization, any strategies for, patient follow-up. What would you do if you have patients that are sicker and there's a lot of adverse events? You want to speak to, and you don't necessarily have to have had oncology experience. If they're giving you an interview, they're willing to work with someone who may or may not have had oncology experience. But you definitely need to say, you know, this is what I could bring to the table, even though I don't have oncology experience. I do have experience, managing adverse events. The patient, uh, it's like you working closely with the patients and you having that nice patient rapport. That's going to be very important. Show your willingness to learn. Like, hey, I may not come with this experience that you're looking for specifically, but I'm willing to learn. I'm a hard worker. These are things that any employer wants to hear. So you're turning those negatives into positives. I don't have that, but I can. This is what I can bring, and they love that. So. Yeah, and most of it, it's just your biggest highlights are how you would keep yourself organized on complex studies, how you continue to make sure you're reviewing the protocol, that you're not going to be getting protocol deviations, and then that patient management. How are you going to manage your patients that are maybe more sicker? So show your compassion, bring in your background that you may have in, any of those techniques. If you've taken care previously of a ill family member, that can help you in situations like this. So those are some strategies that I could suggest for clinical research coordinator interview in oncology. But great question. Rotational training programs, alternative to CRA academies. I'm not sure. I need to know more information about rotational training programs. I'm not clicking like I know exactly what you're speaking about. So, alternative to CRA academies, um, not sure. So maybe if you can give me a little bit more, is it with like a CRO? Like they are having you shadow with different CRAs to learn different styles? Like in the sense of rotational, what are they rotating? So if you can give me a little bit more, Hannah, I can address that one. Best platform to get detailed information about ongoing clinical trials. Yep. the clinicaltrials.gov. Hello, I'm a first year teacher trying to get into clinical research. I was looking at clinical trial assistant, but the job search for those has not been helpful. Do you know of any companies that are looking for clinical trial assistants? Depends on where you are in the United States or in the world. A good website is called Indeed.com, Indeed.com. And I was just on a little bit earlier today, just taking a look at, I think I have it here and I'm not sure. Let me see if I can share my screen really quick and show you this. Let me know if you can see my screen. Um, Hopefully you guys can. I think I'm sharing my screen. So this I'm sharing. Okay, so this is a clinical research associate one. One thing that you want to know is a lot of times they're using CRA, they're using CTM, project manager, study manager, all of these interchangeably. And you're like, is this a real what role is this? You have to read the job description and the requirements, and it will help navigate you a little bit more on what the role is, because the names can be very, very, very misleading. But this particular one, it says, as a clinical research associate one, you will work directly with a clinical research coordinator, research program administrator, research nurse, or principal investigator to coordinate and or implement the study. That's just so you're like an assistant, similar to what you're thinking about. And then it talks about primary job duties, ensures compliance with clinical research objectives, enters clinical research data, provides supervision. So it gives you what you're going to have to do. And then it talks about the education. This particular role is high school diploma or GED or bachelor's degree. And then experience, it says 1 year of clinical research experience is preferred. It's not saying required, it's preferred. Now, this goes back to where I mentioned you want to set yourself apart. So if you're transitioning from teaching, that's different from clinical research. You need to know those core foundation courses. You need to know about medical terminology, good clinical practice, drug development process, human subjects and IRBs. You need to know that. That's going to, I mean, like when you get in this interview, you want to be saying, oh, yes, I know about good clinical practice. I know about the drug development process. What studies would I be working on? Phase 2? Oh, okay, I know about that. I know what happens in phase 2 studies. You want to be bringing something to them, even though this is very open where you could come right from teaching to this. They're in this competitive market right now. Let's compare your resume with teaching no clinical research courses and someone coming from teaching with clinical research courses. Who do they not have to teach more? So I'm going to go with the one who's already coming with the foundation, because they can get up and go and let's get this study on the road, versus they're going to have to teach you what GCP is, what this is. And so in this competitive market, you have to stand out, and that's the way that you're going to stand out. So this is a role that I just found on Indeed.com. I put clinical research coordinator, Los Angeles, California. It popped up. It's a clinical research associate, which is like a clinical research assistant. It does have its education. It does have the experience. But you have to set yourself apart now in this competitive market. And so that's what I mean about, doing that supplemental training, because when you go up against others that have that experience, you don't stand a chance in this current market because it's so competitive. There's not a lot of openings. Now, 2 or 3 years ago, it may have been easier. Someone may have been willing to take a chance and train you on the spot because there was just a need for so many more clinical research professionals. And that's being honest. That's not sugarcoating it. That's just telling you how you're going to be successful and not get discouraged when you're applying and no one is responding. No one's giving you an opportunity for an interview. right now in this market, people are getting weeded out by what's on their resume, what their background is. And I've looked at hundreds of resumes in my time. And this is just strategies that employers, when they get 100 resumes for one role, we got to, how are we differentiating between the two? Okay, this one has experience, this one doesn't. This one has this, and then we just keep stacking them to see who is closest to me not having to train. We hire them, they hit the ground running, all of those things. So that's what I mean about, you gotta add to your resume and not just think what you're bringing is going to be enough in this competitive market right now. Let's see. I've been in clinical research since 2006. Okay, so good. I've been mostly working in DM. And I feel like I'm stuck between becoming a lead and just a basic support role for DM. It's hard for me to get the study start experience, such as edit checks, RPS, the listings, and ECRF design. The studies that I'm out on are in maintenance. So yeah, and so no SSU experience. So one of the things where you're at, speak to your line manager, speak to your manager and say, hey, I've been in study maintenance. I really want to get some experience in closeout. I want to get some experience in study startup. I myself was once in a study startup loop for about 3 years. I was stuck. They just kept giving me new studies to start up, new studies. I would get to FPI, they bring me back to bid defense. And I just was just stuck. And I talked to my manager and I said, hey, I want to get some additional experience. The next study that's in startup, can you assign me there? So that's first. Speak to your manager and see if you can get it internally. If not, you may have to think and look elsewhere outside of your company for another company and interview. And in your interview, you want to say, I am specifically looking for study startup experience. Where are your studies at? Ask them, when they ask you, do you have any questions? Ask them about that. Say, do you have any studies in startup? And if they're saying, oh, all of our studies are in maintenance, or all of our studies, we have studies in closeout and maintenance, then you would know if you get hired on by that company, you're going back into that same maintenance. So you have to, A, start within, talk to your line manager, and then B, if that doesn't work, look outside of that company for other companies, but be very specific in your interview to ask what kind of trials they have there. What stage, if it's in startup, maintenance, or closeout. Try as much as possible to learn wherever you can while working at a site. It will give you lots of skills to use in your next role. Yes. If they say they need someone, if you're a study coordinator and they say, hey, someone's going to be out for the next 2 weeks. Can someone jump in, or can someone assist with data entry? Yes, I'll do it, because now you have experience in data entry. And it's really good if it's a different EDC system than you're working on your study. So maybe you're working on Rave and they're doing data entry in Oracle. So now you have Oracle experience. You can put that on your resume. So always, when possible, be willing to volunteer and take on other tasks that are outside of your own, because it gives you additional experience. And that's the only way that you're going to learn. Ask questions. Ask the lab, your lab assistant, hey, how do you processing these labs and packaging them up to go out? Ask the pharmacist, any help you need with IP accountability. Open yourself to additional work when you can swing it. Not all the times where you're overloaded, but you definitely want to be willing and open. Are there any global opportunities on a global level for US CRAs? If you know multiple languages, yes, there's a potential. So, like, let's say you know French. You may be able to find a opportunity where they're looking for a bilingual CRA. So yes, there are opportunities. Also, look in the job descriptions. Sometimes it will say bilingual is needed. That will tell you that you having experience in you being bilingual may take you to a place where, English is not the current language, or the only language there. So I would say, yes, there are opportunities, but you also need to align yourself, and you need to speak with, I would say, your line manager. But really, you can, like, for instance, if you wanted to be a CRA, if you're in the US and let's say you wanted to transfer to the UK, they speak English. That's a conversation with your manager to say, but they're not going to have you as a CRA in the US, and then you're flying over to the UK too. No, now that will be eating up the travel budget for that study. They have to have you more central. So if you're going to be in the US, you're doing US monitoring. If you want to be in the UK, you would need to be transferred to the UK office, and then you would do monitoring in the UK. But you're not going to be traveling in the US and in the UK, because that travel budget, there's only a limited amount of budget for CRAs traveling, and they want to keep you as regional as possible. Otherwise, you're blowing the budget every time you travel. Good question though. What type of impact AI tool will make on CRA jobs or clinical trial related jobs in the future? It's an I'm not sure. There are some integrations that are happening. I've seen one in regards to using AI to review monitoring trip reports. So that is something that they're trying to figure out. But there is a level of critical thinking that's going to be needed in clinical research, whether you're at the CRA, CTA, CTM, CRC position, that AI is not going to be able to do 100%. They may get close, but they're not going to be able to do it 100%. And you just think every day is different in whatever role you're at. Every situation is different. There's a new twist on it that was different than the last twist. And so you need that critical thinking. You need to be able to speak with one another. You need to be able to pull back references from when you addressed it the last time. So AI may have its place in some places, but I don't see it taking over fully for clinical research. What is the future of the TMF positions? Whew, we need TMF. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things. It's one of the most important things of a study. But there's not enough care given to it until the last minute. And then there's a lot of cleanup that has to happen because the TMF is not in the place that it should be. So I don't foresee TMF positions going away anytime soon. They may get more efficient, but there's always going to be a need for TMF gurus to be able to help clean up the TMF, and get started correctly, maintain it, clean it up, and then archive it so it can be delivered to the client. So there's always going to be a need for TMF. Let's see. As an individual coming into the field, would you say the work we do in a bachelor's degree can help? Yeah, bachelor. Yeah, and it's also, again, what do you want to do? Do you want to be a CRC? Do you want to be a CRA? Do you want to be a CTM? You got to know where you want to go. You got to know that. Then you look at the job description for that particular role. And then just like the one that I had just showed, it said high school or GED required. I believe it was required. And then bachelor's preferred. So it's not a requirement for some roles, but for higher roles, it will, in that same kind of general section of where I showed you, it will say it's required. So yes, you definitely, bachelor's degree is great, but you got to have those foundational courses to help you. What's GCP? Why do we do our corrections the way we do? Why don't we use whiteout in clinical research? There's a lot of little nuances that you need to know working in clinical research, and you get that from the experience and from the proper training there. What is the most entry level clinical research roles that a person with a background in health? You may want to look at, there's clinical research in all therapeutic areas. So take a look at your area and find clinical research sites that are doing research in your background. So that's one thing. Align more so with your background. There's always quality of life. There's, depression studies. There's all kind of studies that you can do, behavioral studies. So there's always an avenue, but your better focus would be based off of your background versus trying to go to oncology or gastroenterology. That is, you're going to have to bridge the gap with some training on those indications, but you're coming with a step up. You just want to align yourself in that with the sites that are doing research and with your background. Great questions. Oh, we have 5 minutes. Okay. There seems to be a lull in recruitment right now, especially in Canada for CRA roles. Yep, in the US too. Why are US companies not opening to Canadian residents even for more? Right now, it's a freeze. There's a little bit of uncertainty within the economy here in the US. Some places are experiencing layoffs. Some places are experiencing, we're not going to take on or start any new studies. We're just going to maintain the ones that we have. So there's a little bit of uncertainty right now. So that's why you're not seeing the roles that you would normally see. And the same in the US, we're not seeing the roles that we would normally see. It will open up, but we're kind of in a waiting game situation right now. And why are US companies not open to Canadian residents? Even I think it has to do, I'm not 100% sure. I think, probably a recruiter or someone that you can connect with that knows that insight. Sometimes it's due to visas and sponsorships. I know when working with people outside the United States, so I'm not sure if Canada would fall into that category, but sometimes it has to, again, who can we get in the easiest? I'm going to choose a US CRA over a Canadian CRA if the job is in the US, because I can get this person in easier. They can hit the ground running versus we might have to do, additional clearances, visas, sponsorships, letters for a person in Canada. That could be one main kind of stop. So it's right now in the industry as a whole, it's slow, but it doesn't mean that it won't open up. But that's where it is good to network, to speak with the recruiter to see what they're seeing and if they can shed insight there. Yep. Glenda, volunteering Glenda as a CRA, there appears to be constant staffing shortages in the CRC role. Yep, 100%. CRC role is a great way to get started. You're proving that you're one of the true gurus in the industry. Thank you, Margaret. All right. I'm in South Africa looking for volunteer programs. Yeah, you have to everywhere. I mean, this is where you get your start pretty much in all countries. And it doesn't matter whether you're in the US, Canada, these are some of the basic foundations. There may be other countries that have, high school to clinical research programs or internships. Look at that. But this is what I know so far, what I've seen. If they know someone, complete a process improvement or quality project can get in. Not sure which one this is related to, but yeah, the networking, knowing someone can help vouch for you, saying, hey, I've worked with the CRC for years and they can be great, but not sure if I know what that's relating to. Thanks, Margaret. Let's see. Thank you for that. Can you recommend a CTA training program for those who have? So CTA, clinical trial assistant training program for those that don't have, is that the role that you want to go into, the CTA? So that's, again, you always want to know, where do you look at all the roles, look on YouTube, ask your colleagues, what do you do in your role? Also look at the job descriptions on Indeed or online. What do you do in your role? Really understand that you want to go into CTA. CTA is like an admin assistant, but they know clinical trial. So you still need to have the foundation courses. You need to know about meeting minutes. You need to know about trial master file upkeep and regulatory documents, the documents that you would have to do. So if you had to just look at it just really quick, it's similar to admin assistant, but the CTAs, they do a lot of things for the studies to keep the studies running, and that they're the right hand as a C for the CTM. So they're very important, but you want to make sure that that's what you want to do first. So look at all of the roles. What's a good time, stage, and career to know to take your CTM course? I'm an assistant CRO, assistant CRA and a CRO. I do not have any on-site monitoring experience. When you're ready to make that transition, I would say take the CTM course before, like if you're still in the CRA, within the next year, the next 6 months, I want to move to CTM. That's when a good time is to take the course, to be proactive, because you're going to get tips about how to um, uh, interview. And you're going to understand the process going into the CTM role. If you are already in the CTM role and you're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, you're drowning, you can join the course at that point. And then if you are, stuck in the study startup cycle, or been stuck in the closeout visit cycle as a CTM, and they're about to assign you to a study startup, and you need to brush up on the things you need to do as a CTM there, you can join it when you're in the CTM role at that point. So it just really depends, but definitely reach out to me if you have any questions on when would be appropriate to join the CTM course. We typically offer those once a quarter. We have one starting in April, and then our next one will start in August. And definitely, if you're thinking about the CTM role, that's going to be a course that you can use to level up when you are trying to get ready for your interview. You have a 1 or 2 shots. You want to make sure that you're hitting it, knowing what the process, knowing what you're going to have to do and what you need to do in the CTM role. So great question. Okay, we're at the top of the hour. We'll do another one of these if you guys want in May. So let me know in the comments if you want to have another just kind of open session, and we will get that scheduled. But I thank you everyone for joining and for the great questions and the discussion. And be sure to share this with your colleagues that may not have been able to attend. And then, check us out at ClinEssentials.com. There you can learn about the CTM training course. You can learn about our career services, and then the products that we have, our physical products that we have for clinical research professionals. All right. Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you again soon.